Some see death and run away. Some see death and come alive. Some see life and run away. Some see life and come alive. Some see death and run away. Some see death and come alive.
All right, and we are rolling. Hello, humans, and hello to all those non-humans and ascended master humans also watching. Gita Rose here. Thank you for tuning in. This is another episode of Gabbing with Gita, and today I am joined with Patrick Haize, transformational ally, a bardic hip-hop philosopher, inspirational coach, and activation catalyst on a mission to help integrate harmony into the human mind, body, spirit complex. Patrick Haize is committed to authenticity as well as the courage that authenticity requires. Hello, Patrick. Thank you for joining me today. How are you?
I'm awesome. Thanks so much for having me. It's a
For sure.
pleasure to connect in this way with you.
Likewise, it's my joy, absolutely. And you are the second guest that I've had on Gabbing with Gita, so thank you for that. Woo, woo. Yeah, I started last year, actually. The first episode was with Casey Lake. And then
nice.
I recently, last week, did one with him, and by the time yours is up, that one will be up. So now it is official because I have another guest on that isn't Casey Lake. He was the only guest for for a while. So yeah, so thank you for joining in. This is fun for me to be able to explore this way of contact, right?
It's a different kind of channeling, right?
It is, yeah. And in ways, it's actually more challenging, right? To be yourself in ways.
Interesting. Well, I don't have the same experience with you as doing, channeling, other beings in the same way that you do. But I can see that, yeah, totally, because it's like bringing more of your true self forward is sometimes like, well, it's always a learning experience. You don't necessarily know what is you or what's coming next, until the next level unfolds.
Exactly. And it's kind of like maybe a way that you could understand. So for those that aren't aware, you're an amazing musician and writer and poet, and perhaps to kind of link in a way that you might be able to understand a bit what it feels like to be in the channeling experience is maybe when you are performing something or you're in the process of really fine tuning a song and you know where you're going, right? Like, the next words, you really get to be in just that flow and you get to be kind of supported by the energy of it, right? Like when it's already in there, right? So that's kind of what vocal channeling feels like. Is Bella has memorized the script, even though it's in the moment.
Right.
She knows where it's going. So my mind just gets to be held by the frequency of the poetry that's already written.
Absolutely. Yeah. And surrendering to that experience. I can definitely relate to that in the sense of if there's something that really wants to be expressed, it's like everything about like Patrick Haize is like not there. It gets out of the way and it's just exactly what's being expressed in that moment. And it's actually a beautiful feeling because it's like it's you fully tuning into whatever it is and dissolving the ego construct that's like evaluating things or pushing or pulling, and it's just moves through. And especially when it's high vibe content, it feels amazing as it comes through. So
absolutely. Yeah. Well, I'm so excited to get a chance to just kind of like chat with you. And we were chatting before we started recording, be like, where are we going to go? I don't really know. Like, let's just see what arises. So let's dive into a couple of themes and just kind of start allowing the flow to take us. So what has 2020 been like for you? How is this experience of the current events or the unfolding of the transformational age that we're in? How has the last few months been for you?
2020 has been, I bet everybody's got to answer it somewhat the same, in the sense that everybody's experienced it as being like crazy and chaotic and transformative, and so many different curveballs have been thrown. And so 2020 for me has been absolutely like a change of plans, a humbling experience. It's been an alchemical experience, a deep process for me. I have many extreme life changes that kind of right out the gate in 2020. I left a 7-year relationship, and I had plans to go to Eastern Europe And as I had one foot out of the door, everything changed, and I ended up just moving down the street instead of going to Eastern Europe because we were on lockdown. And I had retreats planned that I was going to be doing in Joshua Tree, actually with Casey. Like he was going to, come out to that, and that's, was what I was gearing up to do. But then, the gatherings became unavailable. I also was about to go and finish a project and go on a music tour with Gabe Solomon on the East Coast, and all those plans all got completely, rewritten. And I was basically, okay, now I'm just sitting in the same town, like alone in an Airbnb, and like, what do I do now? And so circumstantially, that's kind of, what was going on. On an emotional level, for me, it's been very transformative. Just the entire process of processing a long-term relationship like that, finding my like identity and stability outside of the context of that relationship, and then also managing the dynamics with the breakup and everything, and how that relationship falls into its appropriate place, and how to show up in the right way for that, and that's been challenging for sure in a lot of different ways. And so I think that to sum it all up, it really comes back to like any life experience that we have. It's been showing me all these unforeseen and different angles of myself or my shadow or other aspects that I haven't seen, and I'm using it to figure out like more what I truly am, and you have to be given situations where you're kind of confused to test things out, to like get closer to that true essence of who you are. And so I've been doing that, and then focusing a lot internally, and exercising more, and studying more esoteric science, and doing more spiritual practices. And that's kind of what I've been doing with my time kind of being at home. Now, luckily I live in Sedona, and the gathering community here isn't too phobic about things. So people are gathering, and it's still, relatively open compared to a lot of different places. And so I feel really blessed in that sense. But I just moved to a new place, got a new apartment or a house, I guess, and I'm like settled into this place, and I'm in a new relationship, and just kind of moving forward, and enjoying myself. I'm writing some courses. There's a lot going on, but that's kind of how 2020 has been going on for me.
Thank you so much for sharing. And it's that level of authenticity that you bring to everything that you do that in my kind of gaze and watching of different teachers or guides or whatever, that really is a special spark that you bring forward in terms of your commitment to that level of realism and authenticity, and ownership of your shadow, and also really being able to step forward as like a new model in a way of a divine masculine. So I just thank you for sharing what you just did, and for being who you are, and the way that you present yourself in the public arena is really admirable. And I think for so many people, like that's this deep level of alchemization that you were referring to, right? I think so many of us have been through that this past 6 months, and I think that's from a larger bird's eye view is kind of like what we all decided to create during this time, to be like, okay, like let's really do this. We're gonna throw ourselves some curveballs. We're gonna shake things up. Because and Bella's perspective a lot is she constantly reminds people that things aren't happening to us. Not only are they happening for us, but they're actually happening from us. And I think so many people can really relate to that. And I think so many of us, because the situations are so intense, that in this kind of beautifully paradoxical way, we had no choice but just to like completely surrender, like the rug was just pulled out from all of us. And I think so many of us know very deeply that it's that level of authenticity and that full surrender into the innate support to just like kind of slide down the hill is really what's been needed during these times. And I know for myself, and I've been sharing more about this, and I'm curious to get your take on and your spin on this. I know for me, it's very much been the journey of knowing my own translation of the concept that everything is coming from inside of me, right? That everything that we see is a reflection of our own consciousness, and that we're all our own unique universes that are creating our own versions of the world that are then simultaneously interacting with each other. And for me, it's been this really sobering hallucination and psychedelic journey, kind of discovering what that means for me. So I'm just curious your take on that, or if you have a different perspective or different translations, or if there's been
Yeah.
yeah
Yeah. It's interesting. I made a video a while back where I was talking about the mirror effect of reality, and I was getting, because I feel like it's like oftentimes there's this kind of perception of like reality being this one for one mirror, and where in my experience, like I feel like it's definitely a mirror and it's definitely reflecting us, but it reflects in all sorts of different ways. Like it can reflect polarities to us. It can reflect distortions. It can reflect it's almost like the surface of the reflection does have other consciousness that's participating with it. So so when you reflect off of that surface, whatever contortion or distortion or clear reflection is on the surface of that, it's almost like if you look at a mirror and the mirror had a bunch of different mirrors on it. Some of them had different textures, some were different colors. And so when you shine your light, it would shine it. It's going to reflect it back, but it's going to reflect it in all these different patterns. And so, because I sometimes see people, would get caught in negative spirals where they'd be, every time they would experience something negative from someone else, they're like, well, this is a reflection of me. And so I'm doing that, and start like almost introjecting onto themselves, like the opposite of projecting like flaws from other people and stay in unhealthy relationships and stuff like that. So when I think about the mirror first, like I kind of like set that container for it. Like it is a mirror, and it's always going to be bouncing your energy back, but it's not necessarily a one for one mirror.
exactly
And also that that we all like absolutely have that universal creation power within us. And so like a part of getting more, finding ourself more, is coming to identify by using that I am self-awareness, using that capacity to I guess realize yourself, to identify those themes or programs that we're running that actually are not us. Like we're choosing to create somebody else's dream or some other dream that was implanted into us. And so and that's a tricky thing too, because it's like like since a child, it's like this mimetic kind of like experience where we emulate the people that we admire. We emulate the people that we're in awe of. And so like, what are we in awe of, and what do we admire, or what were we just subjugated to as a child on a regular basis that created certain patterns and energy frequencies that we're perpetuating. So we are this creational being that is creating reality, but how consciously are we creating the reality, and how much of it is a program that's being played? And waking up is a process of like coming back into that awareness that, oh yeah, actually I am creating this. And then getting all to the subtle intricacies of how we're doing it, and then taking our sovereignty back on all those levels. And yeah, so it's a trip when we look at this reality and we're like, okay, freaking everybody's wearing masks. This is like some weird sci-fi movie that like somehow I'm like participating with this thing, and this is the realm that we're creating right now. And it is a psychedelic phenomenon, what was the word? A psychedelic phenomenon or anomaly that's happening right now. It's like really strange.
Yeah, and I love what you said. Thank you for pointing out the subtleties and the nuances, that it's not a one for one mirror. I think sometimes you're right. A lot of people do kind of get confused by that, because a lot of the times we are creating something that is, from how I put it, the denser belief structures, or the part of us that created the experience of separation, right? It needed to create the program, or to create the story of the dense human experience. And there's still parts of that that are kind of the residual muck in the tubes, or right, that as we are awakening and remembering, oh, we are in an experience, we're then seeing those reflections in the mirror that are coming from the denser belief structures. And like the example that you use, sometimes it's a person that you're like, oh, well, you need to look at this, like this is coming from you. And like sometimes the lesson is to be like, oh, wait, no, that yes, my consciousness is creating this, but now I've reached the point where my lesson is to go, oh no, that actually isn't mine anymore, or that is something that I don't prefer. But we need to see that in order to know that. We need to see it in front of our face to go, oh, I don't want that. Right. Okay. So yeah, and what's fascinating too is that there isn't really, to kind of use your terms of these different layers, these different textures, these different colors of the mirror on top of the one mirror, right? There isn't always going to be one answer, or like one mirror that we can look through for every situation. It's always going to change in terms of what the lesson is, or what level we need to align ourselves with to be able to extract what we need. And that's, I think, where, going back again to the authenticity of it, I think that's where where we're all right now, knowing that we're brave enough to really sit in those uncomfortable places of knowing that perhaps that we don't really know fully what's going on, right? And another thing that I know that I've been practicing and playing with is being able to see different belief structures within myself, being able to see, oh, I believe that this is true, looking at this layer of the mirror, right? Oh, I can see how that's true. And I can see how there's even a part of me that believes whatever idea of politics, or where the virus may have came from, or where there's all these different narratives, right, that we're able to see. And I can watch within myself contrasting beliefs. And then it becomes the courage to be authentic enough with the self, to be brave enough to rest kind of in that unknown space, and to choose what it is that we prefer to focus on, what layer, what color, what texture of the mirror we want to focus on. So I'm curious, in your perspective, how has it been kind of seeing, acknowledging, and looking at your belief systems with all of this?
Yeah, well, I think what you're saying is absolutely key, and I think that's absolutely the level of consciousness that is being called upon us right now, which is not reductionist, paradigmatic consciousness. We need like a trans-paradigmatic consciousness, right? Because the issue with paradigms is that, you know, everybody's fighting over my paradigm versus your paradigm, right? But the issue is that there is no one paradigm that encompasses all other paradigms in a harmonious way, because even if one for a moment did encompass all paradigms, then all it takes is some people to question that and like position themselves in opposition to the primary principles of that new paradigmatic viewpoint, and then they would be outside of that paradigm, and so it would just create another, you know, conflicting paradigmatic like war. So what's necessary is for us to realize that we need to have a flexible trans-paradigmatic kind of like approach to sense making, like in our reality right now. So in other words, there are different paradigmatic approaches to different circumstances that we find ourselves in, and how do we shapeshift in order to be the most appropriate and efficient, like in relation to whatever it is that we're dealing with. And that's like truly being multidimensional, right? It's like we need to become multidimensional. And so that means that we can, you know, be one way and then shift into a different way. And this doesn't mean that we, you know, in a sense, like we'll throw our principles out or like our morals out to like shift into another thing. You know, I mean, you could do that. There's no rule against doing that, right? But having this flexibility and not being so stuck in a particular way of being. And you know, it's interesting because you were mentioning something earlier about about separation. Like, what did you say? It was something about how we had moved into a
We essentially created the experience of separation to
right, right.
know what it is that we are. But Bella usually really, or the hybrids in general, usually really emphasize that it's the experience. It's an experience of separation, just the
Right,
experience of it. Yeah.
right. So, I've been getting a lot into the roots of that
Mm,
split, like, and what is that, right? And what
mm,
happened, and there's different kind of contexts for which it can be perceived. So one of the paradigms or context for that perception of the split and its purpose, and like the purpose that it's serving, is that like in ancient times, that there was like a law, and this law was, you could think of it almost as like instinct, in the
mm,
sense that you could say like an animal cannot act like and we're not talking about dolphins, but just say like a traditional animal, right, could not step outside of divine law,
mm,
because its instincts have like bound it to that expression, but it doesn't have a higher level of consciousness in the same way that humans do, in which they have the capacity to even like question the instinct or question the
mm,
program, or even like step outside of the program or go against it, or even develop an ideology that rejects the original program, right? um, but then in the traditional story of like this split, when this happened, is Adam and Eve and the apple of the knowledge of of good and evil, right? At a certain point, their consciousness, and this could be extraterrestrial influence, right? They gave us this extra consciousness capacity, but our ability, like, which is really our light, right?
mm,
So we developed to this capacity to say, wait a second, I can actually, like, I have this higher level of consciousness that gives me the capacity to act in ways that could just justify some like idea or belief, but actually be like
mm,
very contrary to this program. And in
mm,
that sense also, there's this like separation, right? There's this separation from we could say is more like a trance state, like homogeny with the program, with like the divine program, to this kind of like more self-awareness. It's like,
mhm,
as an individual, as a separate individual, wait, I'm a separate being. Because prior to that, the consciousness is more of like your ego consciousness is kind of part of like a group ego consciousness. So it's like the morphogenetic field of the animal, like
mhm,
the animal's consciousness is kind of embedded in this greater like like collective like ego. Whereas the individual now, and you even see this in ancient humans too, like, I am Robin of Locksley, like everyone,
right.
they would even say their last name first as they were introducing themselves, right? Because like, I
Mhm,
am individuality wasn't really crystallized in the human yet,
mhm,
right? But then later on, people start really seeing themselves as, I'm a separate individual, I'm not just one of my family members, I'm just not
mm,
one of the the people of this religion, like, I'm my own individual person. And so what's the benefit of that? Well, we can say that the downside of that is that there's a lot more room for conflict, and because people are they're not in sync with they can become opposed to like everything and everyone, right? um, but the benefit in that is that the growth in love, I feel it's like, you could even argue that true love can't really exist unless, or you can't really love something unless you're like separate from it.
mm,
Because if you are it, it's it's like you're consumed in it. I mean, there's a way of saying like identifying to yourself and saying like, I love myself, right? But like but being different, separate from something, adds
mm,
like a new capacity for loving, like
mhm,
outside, right? And so then there's this paradox of like, we're one, and we are, because we are all connected. And that's kind of like in the primordial sense, like if you go back to the primordial ancestor, it is oneness, but then there's this almost gift of like, well, we're birthing gods here, and in order
mm,
for you to become a creator god, the creator god creates, all of reality are thought forms of the godhead, right? We're like
mm,
thought forms of the godhead. So for you to start becoming a creator god in and of yourself, you need to be able to have thought forms also, which is that next level of development that gave us the ability to split, right? So
yeah.
we're like gods in training, which creates this like splitting level to where we can say, I am my own being, my own individual, and I can then engage with reality in a completely new way that fuels novelty and creativity, like all the way back up throughout all of creation. But I wouldn't be able to do that unless I was able to like separate myself and be individual. And then we grow in love by being able to develop our mind and ascend our knowledge to a higher harmonic of love. And that's kind of, I think, the process that we're working in.
Yeah.
It's like we have this knowledge, but like it's used for all these, you know, maybe negative things. But as that knowledge or like light or consciousness evolves high enough, it crystallizes as, you know, like spiritual science is an expression of how it can crystallize as love, like knowledge crystallizing as love, and the alchemical process of, you know, exercising this new level of consciousness to like restabilize. And then we can stabilize as this paradox of being absolutely connected to all things and completely in oneness in that sense, but being completely unique and individual in our own right, and then furthering the process of the fractalization of like the Godhead.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you so much for that. There's so much in what you just said.
Okay.
No, it's beautiful. It's great because it's such an important thing to also remind ourselves of. And I think a lot of people sometimes in different new age kind of concept, we think that sometimes differentiation or that uniqueness is not, you know, what the end of the story is, or it's not where we need to be, or there's going to be this full transcendence into the complete oneness of it. And again, kind of going back to what we were saying before, like the belief structures, it's both. It's being able to hold that. What was the word that you said? Transparent. What was the
Transparadigmatic.
Yeah, I'll have to practice that one. Okay. But being able to be outside of it and being able to essentially see the whole crystal is kind of how I view it, is being able to observe all of the multifacets of it, being trans out of the paradigm in the transformational perspective itself, being able to hold that paradigm. So I think that's such a beautiful reminder, and you have such a fun, eloquent way of speaking that is like almost like it's like challenging to like keep up with what you're saying, but the feeling is always resonant. And for me, how I was translating in my mind is the experience of a piano, that it's one instrument, it's one thing, it's one God, it's one, but there's all of these separate notes and all of these separate keys that if you miss one of those keys, it's not the whole thing. And we need to be able to observe and see the differentiation, the different note. If there's another note, you're not going to be able to hear that there's a difference if there isn't another note on the scale. So that's kind of how I was translating it in the visions that I was getting as you were sharing in your way. So yeah, it's such a beautiful thing to remind everyone of, that it's both, and that it allows us then to, I think, like take that moment, right? That space, like the space in between the spaces where we can feel like the beat change in the scene, or we have the moment of being able to just observe, and observing those unique fractals of the one crystal or the different notes on the scale, that then allow us even more to appreciate the other. Like we experience itself, the all that is itself needed to have the experience and also the truth of separation in order to know what it is and what it is not, and what everything ultimately is. And in the moments where we are seeing things even that we don't outright prefer, there can be that level of the appreciation of the observation of it, just the existence of the other. And if we always remind ourselves, like in those little moments, to be in the observation of the appreciation just of the existence of separation, I think that can really help us ground into that transparent. I'm really going to have to practice that. But to be in that perspective of being able to see both things at once, to then breathe and then know how we want to respond, or know our true desires, or our true beliefs, or true nature. But being able to honor the separation, what I'm saying, allows us to kind of slow down in that moment to remember just the intricate beauty of everything. So thank you for everything that you just went on. It's really inspiring. Yeah.
Well, thank you for saying what you said too, because it actually like brought me more into the grace moment, like, right, just even from reminding me of that, but the power of that. And I really feel like it's in kind of the sacred reverence, the space of sacred reverence that opens us up to grace, that opens us up to more of that which is our true source nature, to express in all of its like intricate fractality through whatever expression is. It's like, you can respond to a situation in infinite different variabilities. There's so many different ways you could respond to it. And so they're like, well, what is the guiding force, for that response? And I think for me, and the primary anchoring point that is most in harmony is getting into that space of graceful reverence, and then letting that be what cradles my expression. So cradles my thinking, cradles my emotional sense. And I make a distinction between that grace and emotions. I feel like those are two different things. Grace is something that's non-polarized and not and it's eternal, right? And this is like what we're made of, in a sense. So like unconditional love, grace, like the highest virtues, right? And those essences are separate than emotions, which are results of belief systems and your interpretation of the reality through the prism of your belief system, creating an emotion, right? Which is a different thing. But in being in touch with that grace or that essence is a great organizing factor that can organize the prisms of our interpretation and our emotions and our thinking apparatus. It can organize it back into harmony with the primordial one that ultimately is at the truest core of what we are. And then from that point of harmony, we have the freedom to create with whatever creation, however we want to create, and have it be a divine expression that births from our own individual creativity. And there's still infinite ways that we can create in harmony, while there's infinite ways we can create, out of harmony. But tuning into that grace and then creating from that grace, perceiving from that grace, is like this. Yeah, it's this like guiding aura that guides us through our life. And yeah.
That opens me up to like kind of a really cool segue that I was hoping to get to. And this is, I'm just formulating this thought in this now. So I think this will weave together though. So a lot of us are still finding the discernment of what is our programming, what is our anxiety, what is our shoulding, and what is our true excitement, what is our true passion, what is our true desires, right? I think that's a big part of the human experience, is finding all of those subtle differences. And you have great talks about that push-pull dynamic. We talked about that at the Shasta retreat, and I think you've made some videos about that. And that's and just as an example, it might be what we're telling ourselves is that our joy is to sit on the couch and just like relax and not do anything. But is that coming from belief systems or, are you not able to hear me?
It was just for 1 second. You said we might be telling ourselves that, and then I can hear you now again.
Oh, now I can't hear you. Ooh, fun.
Oh, weird. Are we back? Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I think so. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Okay.
Oh,
We just got a little glitch for a second.
Yeah, fun. Okay, cool.
So you're saying that we might be telling ourselves.
Yeah, so we might be having the experience that we think it's our joy to sit on the couch and just relax, but then, are we being pulled into that experience from our programs or, aspects of our belief systems? And really what the excitement that we have is to go to the gym, but we have to not go into that pull dynamic. We have to, I'm being pulled to sit on the couch. No, I have to push myself to go to the gym. So you talking about the idea and the the difference of grace, which I feel that is a very visceral feeling, that we can utilize that propulsion and that momentum of grace itself, of the divine nature of perhaps everything that we're seeing. And I'm just curious your thoughts on how that energy of grace can lead us and help us to determine what really is our true excitement, and how that energy of grace can perhaps even give us a new definition or a new sensation of what it is to push ourselves to do something. So again, I'm just kind of formulating this thought in this now. So I'm just curious what arises for you, or perhaps this is something that you've already thought of on your own.
Yeah, well, when you ask it that way, it's a couple of things come up. And one thing that comes up is the awareness surrounding what you know in your heart is the right thing to do
Mm-hmm.
versus what is the more comfortable thing to do or the easier thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
And then that also coupled with the idea of the inclination towards you could almost say even biological inclination towards emotional and sensual comfort, right? But then also with the wisdom realization of, from a long-term perspective, of surrendering always to emotional and sensual desires for comfort, and the effect that that will have on your greater fulfillment, like in life, and like how that opposes in oftentimes like a greater fulfillment, right? And so then, there's a certain another attention point to be brought to is the process of a child feeling inspiration and but not having any tact or structure for how to express that inspiration in a way that's harmonious, and potentially having adults or authority figures that don't know how to facilitate a healthy expression of that true inspiration to help it find the grooves that are harmonious, and even find the empowerment and courage to even go against to be disharmonious when it is truth, when it is coming from a true place. But the result of that being oftentimes that the child will feel an inspiration and then act on it and get reprimanded for it, or will get traumatized in some way from that. So then this guidance principle of like true inspiration becomes clouded or stained with these negative experience traumas that then create this kind of like push-pull where you will feel the inspiration to do something, but then simultaneously almost feel like the fear or the negative residue from a past experience that you had with it, that then clouds your ability to identify what that true inspiration is. And so a lot of the process is trying to get back to what is that true inspiration, and to follow that true inspiration, and identify what are the programs that are blocking that, and identifying the residues, and then there is also the process of realizing that the physical body can have a tendency towards laziness or like not wanting to move, or you can have a tendency to step away or to want to move away from something that is scary. But then you needing to know, well, is this scary because you don't walk up to a serial killer with a knife in the hand? That's just a good idea. Or is it scary because it's pushing some sort of boundary within you that's actually something that by pushing it is like it frees you. You become more free, right? So and you could think of it in terms like this, like, are you expanding your comfort zone by, and in expanding your comfort zone, then you have more freedom, like because you're more, and you're in this place of more freedom. So, So those are the kind of like little different like radar blips that came up as far as like of how to kind of figure when we're taking action for the right reason, or the wrong reason, or when we can disguise to ourselves or rationalize that, oh, well, when I think about going and doing this thing, I have a negative emotion. That means that that's not my highest path. Well, why are you having the negative emotion? Is it from a trauma? Are you afraid of something? Does your heart really, truly want to express in that way or do this particular thing, but you're not doing it because you get a negative emotion when you think about it because you're afraid of it, and then rationalizing to yourself that that's not what I'm supposed to do because I get into a lower vibration when I'm about to do this thing. So it's just really kind of being like honest with yourself about where it's coming from, and noticing when you have a current pulling you in whichever direction, and then being like, well, where is this coming from? Is this like a programmed thing? Is this, or and how this all ties back into the grace is that, the more that we can surrender to a state of gracefulness, then the more clarity we have as to when something is truly in alignment, yet we just have a fear, or whether it's truly out of alignment and it's not something that's what our soul wants to do. From that space of grace, there's more discernible truth about the inner workings of ourself, and so then it can be a guiding principle or a guiding force in that way.
Yeah. And I'm gonna diving a little bit deeper, still kind of on this same topic, because this is something that I was excited to dive into with you. So I'm really honest that I think my experience of feeling safe enough to express is really different than a lot of people, because growing up in the theater from 5 years old, I learned at a really, really young age, and my brain was wired to be rewarded for being big and expressive. And in acting, most directors, and it's just easier in ways to work with someone who's really, really big and be like, okay, we need to tone it down a little bit, rather than pulling it out of someone. So I learned at a really young age, oh, this is actually really encouraged. And I can feel it's easier when I was really intuitive as a kid. It's easier for directors to be like, okay, let's just tick. So let's just give them everything I got. Let's just go for it. And my brain got wired, I think, really differently. And so it's almost like, and my family was really, really supportive of it. My family came from the love of the theater, and this was a mutual excitement that I had. I wasn't pushed into anything. I came out of the womb singing, like this was always my joy. And it was, again, like a mutual excitement. And so I grew up in such a supportive environment that I'm really honest sometimes, where this really feels like a level of connection that I have with the hybrids, where to some degree I feel really alien with this, that I do understand that people receive these different traumas around expression, and the more and more you get into that cycle, and more you're in that fear. But yeah, to me, I'm like, what? Like, help me understand this. But I do I do understand it, but over the years, and this is something that the hybrids lead me through, of understanding the beauty, the separation, right? Of understanding this is something that's very unique, that I have a very different experience of, but almost like reverse engineering myself. Like, how do I do what I do? How can I help people to know that they're safe enough to express, and to do the things that push us out of our comfort zone, that give us a little bit of fear? Like, how can I figure out how to better help people? And so I'm curious, in your experience, were you always really expressive with yourself, with your music? What lessons did you go through, or what ways did you perhaps find this ability to know that not only are you very safe to express, but that it's needed from each and every one of us? So if you just want to give a little bit of your experience about that.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely was not in an environment that was supportive when I was younger. I had people that attempted to support me as best as they could in different ways, but I think it was just the nature of what the particular, contracts or path that I had to come here was like, you're going to actually be quite like oppressed and repressed, and have to kind of break back out of that. And so that's been my experience. I'll speak to the time when I got medicated as a child. About 12 years old, I got medicated, and at that point, I was so internally tangled that I literally felt like I couldn't even just talk, like in a group of people, like at all, and just even like walking down like one of the hallways at school. And granted, I got in a lot of trouble, so I was into school for criminals, so a lot of the kids were violent criminal offenders in the school that I was in, so it was a little bit uncomfortable situation. But even before that, before I had even acted out to get to that point, like I just felt really, really tangled. And so it's been a long path, and honestly, it's something I still work on. It's like there's always these new levels that I need to open up to. But I mean, the first time I tried to make a YouTube video, I couldn't even talk on the camera, and I felt so bad about it, and I shut it off, and like just couldn't touch a camera for 3 weeks. It like really took a lot for me to keep coming back and doing that. And that was my experience of knowing that I need to do this, and but then fighting, in a sense, the resistance that I had towards it. And continuing to show up, and little by little expanding my comfort zone to be more comfortable with things like that. And there's still, I still see all these other areas where I want to expand further, and I do have a fear point surrounding different levels of expression or different things just in general. And it's just a matter of organizing my time so I can like go at these things and do it when it's in integrity, in the sense that I know that it's part of my path, and I'm supposed to expand in that particular way. So, a way that maybe you could relate it a little bit, I was just thinking, is that like, you can probably relate this to any sort of just fear in general that you have about something that that you would like to do, but you have fear about it. So, I mean, I've always been admirable of your vivacious, just like openness. Like when you came to that first retreat, like I was like, what, it was like you were so activated and just like, it just comes out so naturally. And I think that's what creates the foundation for your channeling in a lot of ways too, is that it's like, that freedom to express, it almost is like it like clears the channel and opens it to be more available to transmit. And yeah, that's beautiful. And I think that just even in your being of that, it's a demonstration to people that it's available. And then it's also this osmotic transmission, like this osmosis response, where just being like in the presence of somebody that is that free and relaxed, it gives them this contrast, and as long as they don't get stuck in their head about like separating themselves, oh, they have it and I don't, because that's how it can spiral backwards. But more where, and this is a really good key for anybody, if you want an attribute that somebody has, that appreciating it is how to draw that force into yourself. That's how you like the more you get frustrated that you don't have it, the more you're going to separate yourself from that. But if you can honor and appreciate it and admire it, right? And that doesn't mean you need to put them on a pedestal, but honoring and appreciating the particular skill or the admiration of that is actually how you draw that force into yourself. And through loving it and like really, like admiring the beauty of it, it becomes more of you. And so I think that like what you do is really powerful in that sense. So, you don't necessarily have to go the path of like figuring out how to break somebody out of that, a cage, using all like the psychological analysis and like systems for doing it. But just you being free in and of itself helps do that in its own way.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that reflection. And it is something too that I like to share with people as well. Like I'm nervous every time I go to do something. Like, it's not that I'm not nervous. Every time, like even just like starting today, like reading your little bio, like I can feel my heart going, and you just keep, you just barrel through it. And I'm curious if you could bring, because I think, well, first off, again, thank you. That really, I'm just like receiving what you just said and just allowing myself to just to keep going and expressing more and just serving as that reflection for people. And then also really wanting to, this is why I'm so excited to do this series, is to chat with people that I really respect and that I know are maybe coming from a different side of the buffet table, right?
Mhm.
And I know a lot of people have that moment, or are wanting to step out and share more, that they have things that they want to say, or even like making a YouTube video. So in your own words, like, how did you, in those times where you would try to record and nothing came out and you turned it off and you couldn't even do it for months, like, how did you, is it as though like you get a wave of inspiration and you just ride that wave and you go, like, are you able to put words to how you were able to do what you've done, pushing through the contrast in this way?
Well, part of it's commitment, and so that first comes clarity, right? Like, you be
Mm-hmm.
clear about what you're committing to. And it was like, I know I had something to say and I know it was
Mm.
valuable. And I even was capable of being able to express it in certain situations. But then there's other kind of blocks that I had in regards to like self-judgment and like being on camera and like that whole thing
Yeah.
that like
Yeah.
just created this weird complex when I got in front of it, and it was just like awkward. And so when I think about like the tips and tools or techniques that I used, it's like those are like so vast. And those are like, if I was working with someone one-on-one, depending on their specific situation, I'd be like, okay, here's a way of reframing this, or here's a way of reframing that. But like as a whole, I would have to say that it's just commitment.
Mm.
And it was dedication
Mm-hmm.
to doing it that really I just kept showing up and working on it more and more. And I tried everything. I tried, like writing it all out first, and then
Mm.
like, knowing exactly what I want to say. And again, there's so many different tips for being able to make videos that, I could give you, but I'm trying to make this more of a universal thing.
Yeah, no, me too. Yeah, thank you.
And so, yeah, like clarity and commitment. and,
Mm.
and then, and then there's also a certain level of, I mean, you need to have a certain measure of confidence in like that what you're doing has value.
Mm.
And that is something that you cultivate by experimentation, and you can do that in however many, multitude of different ways. But the more times you're able to tangibly help somebody with the things that you're saying, and doing, then the more you become more sturdy that it's valuable, and the more
Mm.
that you truly experience in your reality, and the more that you do your own experiments with things to become sturdy in them, when it becomes a knowing, then it's like nothing can really stop that. And that's actually, now
Mm-hmm.
as I'm coming around, I think really it's like it's speaking your truth.
Mm.
Speaking, because if you're really speaking your truth, then you might have weird complexes in it coming out weird, but you know that where you're coming from is
Mm.
true.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you're coming from somewhere true and there's good intention behind that, then that's enough to work through all the other stuff. But if you're coming from a place that's inauthentic, when you start hitting those walls, then you start really like,
Mm.
doubting yourself, because it's maybe not real for you.
Mm-hmm.
And so,
Beautifully said. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, sorry I cut you off, but that's
Oh,
that's it
that's
right
it. That's the
there.
gist of
That's
it.
it.
Yeah.
Because, and then it lends me to kind of weave back into what we were talking about, that grace. Because in a way of defining grace, that is perhaps like yes, all truths are true, but there is like a singularity point of the true, of the true divinity, of the true grace. And I think when we find that space of deep truth within ourself, that's then is kind of like, I almost feel like aligning your sails to the wind of grace, right? And when we
Mm.
when we really find whatever that true truth is for us, then there's where the momentum starts to be able to be like, and
Yeah.
that really, that wind can help us find that push that we need to be able to do it. But it's fully aligning with that deep resonant of truth for
Mhm.
ourselves. That I think that's kind of what I was looking for, is because of course, yes, and this is a fun way to kind of segue. This is what you do really, is you help people in, you know, one-on-one case basis to be this guide for transformation and looking at people's unique scenarios and being able to find what is really going to allow them to fly. But in this conversation, that's kind of the key to unlock the general door that I was hoping that we would find. And that's very much the truth that then can align us with again, I feel it like a wind, like the wind of grace that can propel us to just simply enough to push through that resistance. And then in my experience, and again, this is how I know my brain was wired in different ways, because from a very young age, then when you start to put yourself out there, then you align with feedback, you align with people. And sometimes all you need is just that one person that was like, wow, that was so great. That helped me so much. Like, thank you so much. We just need that one person. And then it builds like a muscle, and you get stronger and stronger, and you keep knowing, and you keep putting out. And I think a lot of us know more so too, if we have an idea, there must be one person that's going to benefit from it, or else we wouldn't really have that idea. That inspirations can actually be seen as requests from another note on the piano key. That there is an aspect of humanity. There is one universe. There is one soul. There is one version of the separation of the needed crystal that's calling out for what you specifically have to answer. We wouldn't even have the idea to share it. And just that one person. And then we align with those external experiences, that it builds like a muscle, and we get stronger And I'm sort of talking about putting ourselves out there in public ways, being a service provider or whatever. But like you were saying, this goes with anything that we may have a little bit of fear around. But I think a lot of people are stepping into knowing their truth and knowing what it is that they want to be of service with. Or a lot of people, I think, are having a lot of different ideas of different things that they want to start stepping into and sharing. And in my experiences, I know that it is a lot of the external reflection that allows you to keep going. But it really is once we find that truth that sets the wind in motion. So thank you. I think that's a really big key, is that deep place of truth. So yeah.
Thanks. And I love how you said that it's a request, because I've been explaining that concept, but that's actually such a great way of saying it, that your inspiration is actually someone else's request.
Yeah, and we're being invited,
or a group of people's request.
Yeah, and that we're being, because the hybrids are always about the wordplay, right? And so that we're actually being invited to go on a quest. It's a request. It's a quest.
Oh, right. Yes. Yeah, I love that. I love that, because I feel that's so true. And the beautiful thing is that for every person that has the audacity to express themselves in a completely unorthodox way that's in alignment with their true expression, you're paving paths and giving permission for a whole group of people to come behind you that are, say, more similar in their like expressive capacities, but don't have a path to kind of emulate, to actually activate in themselves also, and so in doing that, not only are you serving other people with the information or with the transmission that you're giving, but you're actually also paving a path for other people that have a similar kind of like soul theme to actually be able to open up into their expression too, and so it's funny with the internet, because the tendency is like people see what works and everybody kind of simulates, or is kind of, there's a lot of copycat going on. Not that that's a bad thing, but it's just that the level of unorthodox innovators is maybe like still at an early stage. And I feel as people get more and more free into their own unique expression, that it will, and you see when there's a pioneer of like a new way of doing things, it's like the pioneer comes along and totally changes the game. And then like tons of other people come after that. And it creates a whole new way of expressing. And so, giving ourselves the permission to just like you can really do it completely new and different, and you don't need to follow a particular structure that's gone before. Not to say that it isn't valuable to explore some of those structures and borrow from them where it's in resonance, but yeah, that truth that you're talking about, and so then the question becomes, right, what is that truth? How do you discern it? Like, how do you identify it, right? And I think that that in the understanding of truth being something that can be recognized as an essence and a vibration is much more broadly or universally practical than truth as a paradigm or as a belief or as like a particular thing, because those are so particularized and angular that you start shifting, and then they fall apart, and they might have utility from this angle, but from this angle it's not relevant anymore. But there's a certain kind of like radar within you that and everybody's had the experience of, in a moment, somebody saying something and in relation to the context or the circumstances that they're in, and it just like nailing it right on the head. Yes, that's truth. And like everybody in the whole situation can all feel that boom, boom. It's almost like this movement through the body. Yes, this is exactly what it is. Or and maybe everybody's had even the experience of in a particular moment feeling inspired to do a particular action where everything about them is like, yes, this is it. This feels right. This is a rightness. I feel this rightness, right? So we can use that as a reference experience of like, okay, that's a recognition of truth. And so then how do I create a kind of radar system that is like sniffing out for that can find that can sense that in the situation, and then channel what the results or what could inspire or be the result of that by developing a relationship with that essence, with that connection to truth, and then letting that be the guide, as opposed to crystallizing a certain way of seeing things and then staying in alignment with the strict code that you've developed in your mind as far as like what's right and or what you should do or what you shouldn't do. Now that's useful, right? Especially when that is a birthing from that truth space. But ultimately, the truth is primary, and there's an exception to every rule. So having that truth there also can guide you in those tricky situations, because that's when we run into trouble. It's like, well, everything that I think has been telling me this, but it doesn't feel right for some reason in this situation. It doesn't feel right. So what do I do here? So
yeah, and I think that's kind of looping back to what we were discussing when we first started. I think that's a big part of what we are creating during this time of this huge shift, is all of this stuff going on is really forcing us in ways to find that translation of that, the navigation, the air, or the visceral feeling, or the translation, or just that like the knowing of our truth, because there's so much going on. There's so much contrasting information. There's so many different forms of the narrative of truth, right? The external narrative of what is true in that way, that it really puts us in a very powerful place of being able to recognize and hone and decipher and ground what it is that you're speaking to, of that type of visceral. I translate it as like a wind or like a drum beat, or it's like this internal feeling of being able to, and also going back to what you were saying, and this is how I know that I operate, and I think I've actually shared this with you. I shared this with you at the Shasta retreat, of how I translate this in my body is like a cat, like kind of like on the prowl. Like I'm always kind of like, oh, it's over here. Oh, now it's over here. Oh, it's over here. And because there's so much external contrast and chaos and upheaval and change right now, we can really see that as this like beautiful opportunity of being like, okay, well, now it's really time to get clear in here, and then continue to sleuth out or sniff out. That's what you said, to sniff out where that wind is moving, right? Because it's always kind of shifting. That's part of the experience. So yeah, just kind of taking it back into a bit more of the honoring, or perhaps the excitement that we can find of still being in this current journey that we're in terms of our collective worlds. And I know that's something that we were chatting about when we talked on the phone a few weeks ago, is being able to still find a level of acceptance or even excitement of being where we are, and knowing that this may even continue for some time. And in this conversation, I've really found like, okay, this is just a different way to explain why this is really kind of cool. What's going on is that it gives us that ability to really sniff out that internal, divine, graceful truth within us.
Yeah, I think you said that beautifully. Because it really is this. Right now, we're being called upon to evolve our sense-making skills and our compass orientation to like what our true values are. We're being called to look at all these things, because just about anything that you look up, you can find scientific evidence that supports it or that destroys it, like like both sides, and so whether that's this totally splitting prism phenomenon happening right now, where like both realities are real and it's like you're choosing which one that you want, or whether just the information is so distorted that you can't tell the difference either way. It's like, instead of looking externally to what you're to how to guide yourself by what some other thing is telling you, we have to have some mechanism being able to feel our truth and feel when something is right or wrong, and have enough trust in that and enough commitment to that to be able to choose it. And so that's been a big thing. It's like one of the prayers I've been saying so much is like surrendering to the grace that's guiding me through. Surrendering to the grace that's guiding me through. And it's like this commitment or trust to what is true on the level where like I can rest into it and know that it's right viscerally through my whole system, like the whole body and my whole consciousness, right? And when I say that, it's not like that's a super easy thing, because there's so many different things that I'm having to process or like deal with that are so complex or strange or like hard to discern in relation to, that it forces me to have to look at, well, what is like creating this response to me, or why am I seeing it this way? Why is it difficult for me to find that actual grace point? And then oftentimes I'll get into a grace point in relation to this thing, and like everything that I had analyzed or processed before becomes somewhat irrelevant. And it's like the simplicity of like just a perspective that, I could explain in one sentence, as opposed to this whole like big, like tangle of like thoughts and analyses and like details. This like other perspective is, the grace is telling me, no, it's just this, and like leave that alone. Like it's not even relevant to go there, but I could have so many legitimate seeming or justified reasons for why this needs to be considered and this needs to be considered. And I could build an entire castle of justification for like why this is so important, and it's absolutely persuasive, and it absolutely like makes sense, and it's logical, and it's structured. But there's a different, but you can see how in the mind, and so many of us are so trapped in just the mind, in just that isolated framework of the mind. You can create these justification systems of justification that look beautiful and symmetrical, like in that realm. But if you don't also have like streaming access to grace and like divinity, it's like it can, you can get trapped in this dimension that's actually, you're not using all of your sense awareness. Like, it's like you're not using your emotional awareness. You're not using your connection to divinity and essence awareness, but you're like over committing to these different frameworks inside the mental space. So yeah, it's absolutely important to get back in touch and, go into nature, whatever centers you, whatever brings you back into that place where there's more clarity.
Yeah. Where there's more clarity and comfortability in perhaps not knowing. That's something that I keep going back to, is being able to rest in that place where we're observing the part of you that is building this very intricate, very logical castle of explanations. And that's the part of the human experience, or the part of the psyche that's wanting a box, that's wanting to be like, this is how it is, this is the structure, and I can choose that I believe this, and this is just the facts and the story, and I can rest in here and I can be comfortable. And then being able to simultaneously realize the other part of the heart space or the observer space. It's like, oh, you're so cute. Like, good job. Like, way to create that story, but you know that's not really how it is. And being able to find that center space within ourselves where we can observe all of that. And for me, I translate that as getting very comfortable with being slightly uncomfortable, and with just the fact of like that we don't actually know. We may know certain things, and again, it's not necessarily not about having, like what you were saying earlier, it's not about having a interpersonal that, you know, your personal belief structure, personal knowing, but it is very dynamic and subtle, right? And in certain times we may very much know what's true, and you know, in that way of the external reflection. But I think we find that internal deep grace truth, and being connected with the grace truth of being honest enough with ourselves to be like, I know enough right now to really know what I don't know. And it can be kind of uncomfortable sometimes.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but I think there's a, going back to kind of what gives us that push, is I think there's a power in that place. I think that's a place of really accepting the mystery of things, and finding that the mystery is really in us in that way. And there's especially, I always love the month of October. I think there's something that's just externally there for us, and kind of collectively there, and mythically there for us to tap into. So especially during this time, I think there's a lot of power that we can really um, harness from that mystery that is part of existence itself, right? That we can utilize that as the power to be comfortable enough to be slightly uncomfortable, and resting in that middle point of seeing all of the simultaneous things that we're believing.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's so key, is like is surrendering to not knowing.
Yeah.
And I apologize, I have somebody working on the deck here, so
Oh, yeah.
there's probably going to be some banging, but it just showed up. But yeah, that surrendering to not to unknowingness, right? You know, that's like one of the most powerful things, you know, because what it requires, you know, as the religious would call faith, right? It requires faith in something. And so it's like, if you have a paradigm that doesn't permit faith, then that could be quite you know, it can be, it's like you will cling to what you believe, or what you like, you need to know. You'll need to fill in every question mark with something that is, you know, acceptable to you, because otherwise you're, you know, like the unknown will just keep you reeling. And so how do we step into that? And that's something that it's like, man, you know, it's an everyday practice of being able to surrender. I like using the term trust life, just trusting life, you know, and you know, the truth that I find that's exemplified from a paradigm or an approach to reality that that is grounded in the trust of life, or the trust in some sort of you know, greater grace, is exemplified by the empowerment that is demonstrated in people that are able to surrender to that. Like, there's this really, really powerful grace that is able to guide people when they truly have faith, or they trust, right? And so, I mean, you could even argue whether their faith is in something false or not, but there, it's like, but you know, whether it is or it isn't, you know, and I believe that there are things to have faith in that are valid, but even if it isn't, like, faith in and of itself is like this virtuous power that creates an aura that is graceful, that guides you through. So even just, you know, faith for the sake of faith is powerful in and of itself. And so, you know, whether you say, you know, faith or trust life, or there's a million different ways of saying it, but you know, finding some sort of way to be able to let go of needing to know everything. But then also holding the balance of you know, because you could take that too far. It's like, oh, I don't need to know anything. I'm not gonna like, you know. So if it's mental laziness that you're not trying to figure anything out and you're trying to justify mental laziness, like that's, you know, that's a different thing also. And you want to still, you know, be available to like understand as much as you can, but you know that when you're resting in the grace frequency of faith, that there is a protection harmonic to that that guides you.
Beautifully said. Yeah. And I think more and more we're getting really comfortable with that level of faith, of perhaps just the process itself. That I think more and more we're knowing that, and when I say we, I mean those of us within the community, or perhaps certain people that, you know, are that I book sessions with, people that have been following this information, or, you know, our little select kind of community subgroup. I think more and more we're really knowing very deeply that, like, there isn't going to be perhaps an answer. There isn't going to be the happiness feeling that exists for months and months and months and months, and you're just like endlessly in this state of ecstasy and bliss. It's, we're making the ecstasy and bliss of the process, of having faith in the process, and more getting really excited and understanding that, like, it's this constant, like you were saying, like day to day experience of like checking in and having that discernment and moment to moment, you know. And I know within myself, more and more I'm like, okay, like this is it's not about being happy all the time, really. We can be happy with the fact that we're always in this exploration process, or noticing these shifts, or, oh, the next lesson has revealed itself. And I think, and I do think that there is a vibration of the word faith that, like you were saying, it doesn't matter if it's true or not, or whatever it is, there is a grace in the faith itself. And what was arising within me when you were sharing that is that it's not all, you know, rainbows and gumdrops and sunshine, but we can make it the excitement of the faith with the process, and trusting life. And then also to the I'll probably drop it in at some point in this, but your song Choose Life, the I Choose Life, I don't know if it's titled differently, but there's an energy behind that song that's really kind of giving me goosebumps actually as I'm saying it, that has that momentum of faith and trusting the process and trusting life to guide us through these potentially really challenging times, and being able to find that power with the grace, and in the process of it not always being super happy, but it can be empowering. Yeah. So just to kind of throw out there and to see what different words come through your poetic mind. But yeah.
Yeah, no, that, I mean, you're really touching to a really important point. And it's like, there's this tendency of, you know, humans in general to, you know, especially in the new age or like wokeism kind of movement of like, this kind of reaching or clinging to the idea of like a perpetual ecstatic experience. And that's not the process of alchemy, you know. I mean, but there's, you know, there's ups and downs, there's things you have to process, you know, there is this, again, there's this grace that comes with the surrendering to the process. And there's a certain qualitative, vibrational effect that is experienced when we do what we know is right, even when it's uncomfortable or it makes us sad or it's difficult. That actually, that there's this certain essence that makes that burden bearable. It makes it, you know, and so, you know, there's actually quite often in the last 6 months, 7 months, have I had that very tangible experience of doing something that's extremely difficult for me, and it hurts a lot that I'm doing it, but I know that it's the right thing. And because of that, I'm able to, the pain is soothed like that I'm going through, and it makes it manageable, and it also makes it beautiful. And so then like these difficult situations become they don't become not difficult, but there's this element of reverence for the path, and there's this element of beauty that strengthens me, that empowers me to be able to bear that burden without it breaking me. And so that's where we grow, you know, the legs to actually carry the world, is through taking on the responsibility of these more difficult things, but doing it from the right place. Because when you do it from the right place, that calls upon these divine virtuous essences that strengthen you to be able to do that. And in that strengthening, you know, that the experience of that strengthening is a powerful process, you know, and you retain that strength after the burden is done being carried also. And that's like the reward that comes from it too. But it's like anything, you know, it's like if you're lifting weights, you need that heavy, you know, it's like the burning of the muscles, you know, that's what creates the growth. And so the idea of like, oh, good vibes only, or like, you know, that, no, you know, that's like just running from ecstatic experience. I mean, that's what, to ecstatic experience, that's not healthy. Right. And but the misconception is, you know, people think that like, well, if I'm not in a good vibration and I'm not thinking, you know, like totally about something that like I want to see, then I'm going to manifest this negative thing. So like now I'm afraid of having those thoughts or doing that. And again, it just comes back to like really having access to what you know is right within you, and then just doing the right thing, and you'll be carried through that by the, you know, the force that awakens in you.
Absolutely. And you know, it's really I'm having kind of a really humorous moment from my perspective right now. So usually Bella and the hybrids, they won't let the word difficult go by. They're like, stop, hold on. We need to help you redefine this. And they usually redefine it as like, this is a challenge. And she'll usually say this is an obstacle that leads to a reward. But as I'm really listening to you and feeling you and wanting to honor the experience that we are going through right now as a race, there is a level of, and like what you're saying, it's not the point of chasing ecstatic experience to ecstatic experience. There is a level of honoring and knowing that it is okay to say, this is difficult. This is difficult. And that's when we fully allow ourselves to feel the true weight of the experience, to be really honest with ourselves, to sink into that. And that's when we really get into like the true understanding of metaphysics, right? That when you really look at something, you're looking at it and you are not then in resistance and then attracting your resistance to keep getting the lesson back so that like you can understand it. When you're really looking at something, that's when most of us know, right, at this point, that that's when we can actually alchemize it. And as you were saying too, it's not this ecstatic bliss that's true alchemy. It's really being able to sink into the truth of and again, my mind always kind of sees things as story. The truth of the scene that we're in, the truth of the story that we're in. And this is a very challenging part of the story where the character is asked to do many difficult things. And there's a level of, again, power and strength and courage that comes with honoring when we are utilizing it in a positive way, not when we're like, oh, this is so difficult, I can't do this. When we're like, yes, the truth of this is that this is difficult right now, but we can do this. So I'm just wanting to reflect to that. And I know a few people that are listening are probably going to be like, oh, shoot, when's she going to comment on the difficult word? So I'm having fun and having a really kind of a deep, interesting moment now where I'm like, oh, there are times when it is very relevant to go, no, the truth of this reality is that it is difficult. And the truth of this reality is that I have the power to get myself through this difficult situation and have fun exploring the challenge and building the muscle and getting the reward. So again, I just want to thank you for being you in the way that you share things and the level of authenticity that you have and the deep, logical and intelligence observation that you have combined with your heart's ability to express. really led me to feel that word in a new way. So yeah, thank you for that. Super cool.
Awesome. Yeah, and I really like the word challenging too. But yeah, that's a really good point that that you brought that through. And from one perspective, it's like, well, you wouldn't you want it to, you wouldn't want it in any other way, And it's like, and I think back on all the difficult, challenging things that I've been through in my past, and how they've shaped me and built my character and forced me to bring light to the surface that I had to dig deep into the wellspring for. I wouldn't have been able to tap otherwise. And so it's like, and so that's part of having faith too, right?
Yeah.
Is that's the process. And so it's like, and so when you can remember back on those experiences that you've had that, during the time was like overwhelming, and like you thought it was a curse, and it was just so much, and like you can't handle it, and it's so difficult. But who you were able to rise into in order to face that and overcome that, then that becomes your very blessing for the person that you've become. And so having faith in the future when difficult things arise, that's part of this is the same alchemical story. You're just starting at that starting point right now where it's difficult. So the quicker you can surrender to the process and actually develop kind of what you were saying, like this, yes, like I'm moving into it. There's always going to be a certain level of resistance, but the more that you can step into it in that kind of way, the ultimately the easier the process will be, and the less time it will take to move through it. So yeah, I think that's a primary key for navigating difficult times, for sure.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. Well, I'm just wondering if there's anything else that's coming through. Like, time has flown, but we're almost, reaching the hour and 40-minute mark, which I'm kind of playing with how long to make these things, or or I just kind of feel like this moment of being like, yeah, because that's just where it's where we are right now, of this, just taking the reverence of the situation, right? And it's kind of like we've kind of reached a point, I think, in this conversation and in our communities, in our friendships, in our spiritual investigative kind of places, right, where the conversation is just going to kind of keep going, right? And it's about like taking that moment and being like, okay, like where is the wind going to put me next, or like what is the next scene that I'm aligning with. But if there isn't another idea or another theme or another topic where you kind of want to flow, we can go there. But yeah, I'm just
I think
feeling that shift.
I think this feels good.
Yeah.
I guess I'll ask you, like, what do you see coming? What are you excited for in the near future here that's kind of unrolling for you? And we could talk a little bit about that maybe,
Yeah.
and then that seems like a good closing.
Sounds good, because I know you've got some interesting, exciting stuff too in terms of what you're working on. Yeah, that's great. Thank you. So yeah, for me, I'm really excited with this series of being able to chat with people and have these conversations and see where it goes, and being able to support people that are perhaps newly sharing. I've got some guests lined up that are just kind of stepping out and just beginning to share their services. And so I'm really excited to be able to provide a space for more people to know that there's these awesome people that are stepping up, and to know that we don't have to be in competition with each other, right? To know that there's space enough for everyone, and to be able to just be excited about other people's successes, and just like encouraging and going through that. And I'm actually working on some more music, creating more music and singing more, and excited to do kind of going back to what we were talking about, safety to express, is working on and creating different stuff on the YouTube channel, wanting to do more dancing, or more kind of like image based things. I'm not really quite sure, but I'm kind of just wanting to shake that up. And then I've also got some different stories from Bella's perspective. Things are kind of shifting for me, for wanting to be a little bit more theatrical. So we'll see how that all comes about. But yeah, thank you for this. And I know we had talked about it. Sorry, I was didn't have too much of my coffee. So let me. But for you, what's exciting for you? I know you're working on a lot of stuff. So
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm really excited to see the
yeah.
unfoldment of that. Yeah, and more of you and Bella as you guys continue to really bring it through.
Oh, thank you.
But yeah, what I'm really excited about now, moving forward is, well, right, I've partnered with Spirit Science, and I've been working closely with them, and I'm considering working even closer with them. But right now I'm working with their online group, and then I'm doing a course for them called Esoteric Emotional Mastery. And so I'm really excited about that because the course is almost finished, and I'm not sure exactly when it's going to release, but that's really cool. And I'm also excited about, from what I've created in the course, to take that into, I haven't decided exactly how I'm going to do it, but maybe some sort of live program that I do with people, going through the 8 different modules on the course, and working one-on-one with people, then also potentially in a group. So there was going to be like a re-emergence of my coaching nice. Opportunities that's going to come, with that as like a fundamental kind of framework for how I'm delivering the service. And so that's really exciting. I've been stacking up a couple of YouTube videos. I've been like off of YouTube for, I don't know, like a few months now. And it's been the first time really like maybe ever that I've been off for this long. And so I have a few videos. I'll put this one up on YouTube too. And Sweet. I'm going to probably start dropping videos as early as, I'll probably start it on Sunday or something like that, this coming Sunday, and start dropping videos again at least once a week. So that's good because it's been a long time that I've been away from that. So I'm excited about that. And then music's the other thing. I have these projects that because of COVID have been kind of, sidetracked and stuff, but I'm orienting myself and starting to have the energy to call in the opportunities to make some stuff. But I think I'm just going to actually be real, it's like spur of the moment and like in the flow with it. I'm not going to focus on creating like this super crazy project and delivering it, but I'm just going to start doing tracks and just releasing them.
That's
just
awesome.
Like, oh, this one, just because my soul needs to express in that way, and it's been too long. So even considering doing some different live performance stream kind of stuff. So I think that'd be fun also. So yeah, that's what's coming down the pipe for me.
Oh, it's so exciting too. And I know that you mentioned briefly also connecting with different friends that are getting more based in ecology and planting and all kind of exciting stuff like that. Did you want to share just a little bit?
Yeah, well,
that's inspiring.
I've really been just getting the call to be out on land. I feel like one of the things that's happening here from this whole COVID epidemic and as a result of that, the more localization of because of the trade breakdown and different things that I think the consequences haven't fully even been realized of that, is that it's encouraging people to look more towards localizing and then even I like to take it a step further into the idea of noble living. I mean, this has been one of my true like I say long-term goals for a long time is to develop a relationship with the Mother Earth that's actually truly in sync. So, to be out on land, growing my own food in that kind of natural environment, and really trying to the best of my ability to create the kind of harmonious infrastructures and technologies that are more an extension of nature as opposed to in opposition to nature, and ground that into my way of life. And so I have been tracking that to a degree in the local area that I'm at, and just kind of keeping my ears open and eyes open to seeing where that's happening, and that there's there's talk of different land being purchased for mystery school physical locations in different areas with several different organizations that I'm involved with. And so I'm staying open to that and really excited about that.
Yeah, that's so exciting. I feel so many of us have that dream and that deep truth within ourselves, and it's so deeply inspiring, and I feel like so many of us are like, yes, yes, yes. And again, that goes back to what it is that we were talking about for the majority of the conversation, right? As we get to that place through the moment to moment to moment steps and following those true knowingness of our joy and being able to cultivate that faith of the process. And I think that dream, right, of living with the land, of having acreage, of having more community, of having these schools, of having places where we can travel, right, and go to these different places and experience different landscapes or different seasons or whatever. Like, I think there's something that is really very visceral within that vision that gives a lot of us that, like, that's truth. Like, that's so there's a really beautiful sensation that we can use to help guide that through this next unfolding process. So thank you for mentioning that bit, because I think that's a really beautiful seed to plant, because of the energy and the emotion behind it deeper connects us to that sensation of grace. Yeah, so that's so exciting. You've got so much going on. So the stuff with spirit science, you'll let people know on your social media stuff, or that's gonna, is it
Yeah, once
already
that's
up,
out,
or?
it's not up yet. I mean, if people wanted to join the spirit science online group,
Nice.
I would say message me. I'm going to have an affiliate link for that. So you message me. You can go to patrickhaize.com and you can message me through there, or you could hit me up on any social media platform. I answer messages, so you can hit me up
Awesome.
there. And yeah, I'll be keeping people posted on any music that comes out. Check out my YouTube, really, because YouTube is where I'm going to be putting content out. And within the next few days, I'll be starting, to have regular content put out there also.
Nice.
But yeah, I don't know, maybe like a month or two,
Nice.
and or maybe even sooner than that, that the course will be ready.
Beautiful.
But yeah, I'll keep everybody posted.
And so Facebook, Instagram, and your website.
Facebook, Instagram, YouTube.
Okay.
YouTube is where I'm putting my content out. My website's patrickhaize.com. And then, yeah, you can, if you want to just hit me up, direct message me on Facebook or Instagram.
Nice.
I'm good about that. Or you can message me through my website.
And are you still providing like one-on-one sessions for people?
Yeah,
as well?
definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Awesome.
that's still available. And so, yeah, if you're interested in that, just send me an email. You can do that again through my website, and that works. Or yeah, again, hit me up on social media, and we can talk about that. So.
Yeah, nice. And that's just for people know. I mean, I think that's like a transformational ally kind of guide, right? Kind of going through the stuff that we were talking about, but you're able to really, help people look at the exact beliefs or mechanisms or traumas or whatever, right? It's
like, I like to call it like assisted self-discovery.
Nice.
And so because it's really about, helping people to just discover what's going on and how to modulate like their inner space, and how to, use different techniques or whatnot to bring more of themselves forward, and be more of who they truly are. So I like to think of it as assisted self-discovery, because it's very much, I want to give people the tools so that they can then, continue to just unfold themselves.
Yes, I love that. Assisted self-discovery. So helping people to remember that they are expert fishermen. You're not just going to give people fish.
Exactly.
We're not here to do that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Helping people to remember that they have known how to fish all along. Yeah.
Definitely.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Patrick, for joining me today. This was such a joy connecting with you. And I know for myself, I've really kind of found a couple of little nuggets to continue to utilize through these really transformative, sometimes difficult, and always challenging times. So thank you very much.
Beautiful. Yeah, it's an honor to be here, Gita. Thank you so much for everything you do and the person that you are and the light that you're beaming into the world. So it's always a pleasure and honor to talk to you and work with you. And excited to connect, even outside of the public eye here soon. So keep
Yeah.
me posted on that.
Yeah, I will, absolutely. And thank you so much for your reflections, and thank you for being you, and stay on. I'll stop the recording, but stay on and we can kind of say goodbye for a second. But it's always like that moment where you're like, I don't know what to do. So and to everyone watching, thank you so much for being each and every one of you beautifully and perfectly. And though our minds may be different, though our bodies may be different, it is through our hearts that we know our spirits are one. So thank you, each and every one of you, for being you. And thank you, Patrick, for joining me here today. And have a BU to the fullest now, everyone. Deep love and aloha.
Some see death and run away. Some see death and come alive. Some see life and run away. Some see life and come alive. Some see death and run away. Some see death and come alive. Some see life and run away. Some see life and come alive. Some say life is a dream. Some say life is a test. Some say life is a quest. Some say life is a lesson. Some call it a curse, others call it a blessing. When I say bye to this thing that we call life, and as I'm laid to rest, I'll know that I gave my best, cause I choose life, as long as life gives me breath. Cause I see in life what is precious. So if life will permit, then I like to be present. To live a long life and not die too young to express this. Cause I see in life what is sacred. And I see in life what is precious. And I see a rich long life full of blessings. Cause I choose life. I choose life, but it feels like I'm starting to dissolve. Like my muscles and bones are parting from my soul. And I'm trying to harness the magnetics of this hardship to step into my godship and evolve. But I'm having trouble cause this puzzle is so hard for me to solve. It's like I'm here to share the love, but my body's being stole. And everybody's got philosophies of hope. But is it wrong for me to fight if spirit's wanting me to go? Or a spirit wanting me to grow? Wanting me to show a new ferocity and walk a deeper road? Honestly, I don't even know. All that I can do is keep on honoring the process of my soul and choose life. Cause though it's been a long trip, I'm not ready to be gone yet. I spent my whole life fighting just to keep my head above the water. And finally now I'm just getting started. Listen to my heart kick. That's the rhythm of a warrior that will never give in to the darkness. And I've learned how to reach you and teach with my words, cause I've overcome considerable hardship. I am not a victim of the storm, and I will not submit to being torn from my mission in this form. I'm a lion, I'm alive, and I ain't gonna die without a fight. I won't go gentle into that good night. And even if you take away my life, you could never take away my light. I'm awakened in the stars, spiraling, braiding new geometries of sentience with cosmic essences, reawakening our godship into form. And I can see through eyes that are timeless, though I breathe with lungs that will die. But every breath that I breathe out of love lives forever in the wings of your heart when you fly. I choose life, fully every second I'm alive, and I cherish all the nectar that I find. And I don't know if this song means hello or goodbye. All I know is this song will never die. I choose life, I choose love, I choose to live with the love storm raging in my blood. In the face of my death is awakening a life from inside of me that's greater than the sun. I choose life.